So, I'm sure that by now you've seen the theory that this background character in the TVA is Peggy Carter. I know that I've heard this theory a bunch of times, but what I've heard less often is why Peggy would be arrested by the TVA. What would she have done to endanger the sacred timeline? Well, I think I found the answer, so bear with me as I break down why Peggy got pruned. You see, the thing which concerns me is found in the first episode of Loki, when Ravonna tells Loki that the Avengers were supposed to travel in time, but he wasn't supposed to react with a Nexus event. The show doesn't linger on this moment, but I intend to, because I don't think Loki was the one that changed the timeline here. Seemingly, the TVA would have you believe that the Nexus event was Loki picking up the Tesseract and using it to escape. But I don't believe any version of Loki would be presented with this opportunity and not take it. To me, this means that the Nexus event was not incited by Loki's theft of the Tesseract, merely that it was shown by this event. So we don't really know who caused the Nexus event. Maybe it was Iron Man making Hulk take the stairs, but whoever did, I don't think it was Loki. But let's rewind a bit to what it is that Ravonna says. She says the Avengers were supposed to travel back in time, but that Loki wasn't supposed to take the Tesseract. This means that in the proper flow of the sacred timeline, the Tesseract isn't stolen away from Iron Man, Captain America, and Ant-Man during their Endgame time heist. This means that, in what the TVA considered to be the proper flow of events, Tony and Steve's trip back to 1970 never happened. So Steve never gets this surprise confrontation with Peggy. In the Avengers Endgame narrative we see, this moment is something of a Chekhov's gun. It seems harmless enough at first, but by the end of the film, we see its importance. Captain America has chosen to go back to the 40s after his Infinity Quest and live out his life with Peggy. I think that the moment we see in the 70s is what causes this decision. After all, prior to this he'd been living in our time for over a decade, and seemingly had a few romantic entanglements while here. But when he runs into Peggy in Endgame, this is upended, and he's reminded of what he could have had with her. So I sincerely believe that this ending for Cap would not have happened without the Peggy scene in the SHIELD base. He would have just returned to the present after replacing the stones. But as I showed earlier, in the sacred timeline, the timeline which determines what the TVA prunes and what it doesn't, this 70s visit never happens. And as a result, it seems very unlikely that Cap would have ever gone back to the 40s. So, from the perspective of the TVA, the ending we see for Cap and Peggy in Endgame is a branch that must be pruned. Based on everything we know of the TVA, they must have shown up to destroy this branching timeline, likely just after the credits roll in Avengers Endgame. So maybe this is the Peggy we see in the background of Loki, maybe it isn't. Either way, it seems entirely likely that even if this isn't her we see, she would have ended up in the TVA anyway and ended up pruned. But if this is the case, I hear you ask, how does Steve end up back in the prime timeline at the end of Endgame? Well, there's a few possibilities, but the best in my opinion is that he's been manually placed there by the TVA. After all, we find out in episode 6 from Miss Minutes offer to Loki and Sylvie that he who remains, and therefore the TVA, has the power to wipe a variant's memories and replace them in a timeline. It seems to me that, canonically speaking, this is the answer that best explains Steve's reappearance in the prime timeline. Maybe this is why he's so cagey with the details of his life with Peggy. Because he can't remember them clearly, because they never happened.
No, I don't think I will.
More like, no, I don't think I can. So this is why, if this is Peggy we see in the TVA, there's no Steve with her. He got taken back to the prime timeline. Maybe he still has a part to play in the sacred timeline. Maybe it's essential to He Who Remains and the stability of the timeline that he gives the shield to Sam, or some other factor that we don't know yet. Honestly, I doubt this was intentional. I feel like it's most likely that one extra they had in the background of a TVA set just happened to be costumed in an old-fashioned style, and as a result, people have assumed it's Peggy. But as we see in What If, as soon as the multiverse reopens, Peggy variants come rolling in, so it's definitely possible. But all I've done here is take the rules of the timeline and Nexus events as we see them in Loki, and apply that logic to Endgame, and to me at least, it's clear that if Loki wasn't supposed to take the Tesseract, that also means Steve wasn't supposed to be reminded of Peggy in the 70s, and probably wasn't supposed to go back to her at the end of the film. But have I missed something? Let me know below if so. And let me know what you thought of this video. I sort of put it together in a bit of a hurry because the video that was supposed to come out yesterday got blocked on copyright grounds at the last minute, which happens to me so often that sometimes I wonder if I'm stuck in a time loop. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Thanks for watching.